Well, good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending on when you catch this. Just want to talk a little bit about something that's kind of troubling, to me anyway. I was looking at a chart, and the title of the chart said median household income in the United States by ethnic group. And at the top of that group was Indian Americans, that's Asian Indian Americans, income of $100,500 per year. Filipino Americans at $83,300 a year. And amazingly, when I was in the hospital, those two groups were most of the people that I was seeing on a daily basis. Taiwanese Americans, 82,500. Sri Lankan Americans, 74,600. And several other white Americans were ranked at number 9 at 59,900. And you have more of those out of the Far East, because everybody but before the white Americans, the top 8 are all from what we term the Far East. And then you got the white Americans, then you have Korean, Indonesian, right below them. And then they have something called average American. It's 56,200. Then Thai Americans, Bangladeshi, Nepali, Hispanic. And at the bottom of the barrel, guess who it is? Black Americans at 35,000 a year. So black Americans are not even making what they term to be the average American income, which is $56,200. Now, the sad thing about that is we're still following the go to school, get a good education so you can get a good job mentality. Yet, following that plan, we are paid at the lowest level of any ethnic group in this country because we're asking somebody else to employ us. We're in last place in average income in this country. Out of 17 groups, we are dead last in average income at $35,000 a year. Whereas, like I said, the top group is Asian Indian Americans, right over $100,000 a year. And when I say we're behind everybody, I mean everybody. You know, we continue to complain about the unfairness of the system, and our average income continues to prove to us that the systemic programming that has been passed down to us from our parents does not work in our favor. You upset yet? What would have happened had we stayed the course that Booker T. Washington had placed in front of us? The course that S.B. Fuller, Robert Gaston, and Reginald Lewis decided to follow. But we seem to think running to the pro-black organizations that are controlled by white people actually work on our behalf. You know, James Weldon Johnson said in 1924 the goal of the organization was to secure political positions. How's that working out for us? Because that's what we're still trying to do, get more political positions. What you need to know, if you did some research on those pro-black organizations run by white people, is those organizations are actually in place to make sure we do not advance economically. You know, we always want to talk about and reference Tulsa's Black Wall Street, but I don't think we have a true understanding of how that group of blacks attain their financial status. They didn't attain it by having jobs in the whole community. Now, sure, many of the women of those men did do domestic work. And once those men wouldn't sell their property because they found out they were sitting on massive oil reserves, a lot of those women were fired. But I don't remember ever reading where they ran and sought out other jobs. I think they were just doing the jobs to do something. But the greatest majority of that wealth was created on Black Wall Street by building businesses. There was also Negro Wall Street in North Carolina that was built on business ownership. The Deuce in Richmond was built on business ownership. Black Bottom in Detroit was built on business ownership. There were several other black communities that were well off financially, and that is the main reason they were talking about white mobs. They had something the white folks didn't have, and that was wealth. See, back then, whites would destroy the black community, and today they place certain blacks in managerial positions to manage Black America for them in the suburbs. And then in other communities, what we consider less economically stable, or what society like the term, well, they're not really the ghetto, but you get my drift. The less economically stable blacks damage the black-owned communities. Even the Civil Rights Crew was a group that was put in place to manage the rest of Black America for the system. And as I always tell you, never take my word for anything. Do your own research. And so we need to understand that. You're going to have to get into some depth to understand that and stop looking at that surface stuff, because all surface stuff is going to do is keep leading to the same place, which in most cases is where you started before you started looking anyway. Why was Booker T. Washington ostracized in the black community? Why was Marcus Garvey ostracized in the black community? Why was Annie Turnbow Malone ostracized in the black community? Why was S.B. Fuller ostracized in the black community? Why was Reginald Lewis ostracized? These people had more than one thing in common, but I'm going to only mention the two major ones. All of them were business owners or promoting business ownership. And the second thing is, all of them were ostracized by the same group of people in one form or another. Like I said, you're going to have to do your own research. Now ask yourself, why are the two biggest employers in the black community doing nothing to uplift the black race? And those two professions are, drum roll please, those two professions are politicians and preachers, which actually form a cohesive unit to keep their thumbs on black progress. But the even sadder thing is, neither of these positions are supposed to be professions. I don't care what your misguided pastor says, and I don't care what your misguided politician says. Isn't it amazing that we scrape the bottom of the economic barrel, but these pastors keep telling us to give the limited resources we already have to the church? But if you have a need, they always tell you to trust God. Isn't it amazing that we have no economic power, but the politicians keep telling us to vote them back in the office so they can work on our behalf? I ain't seen nothing improve in my community since the last census we took, and now they want to keep talking about the census. But we keep listening to these people. How's that working out for you? Let me tell you something. We have found ways to do our own charitable work, my wife and I, outside of giving our dollars to a church that doesn't even put anything back into the community but a feeling. Or, they say they do something for back to school drive, or the Thanksgiving giveaways and the Christmas giveaway. Well, ask yourself, who's providing the stuff for them to give away? And so we're going to have to figure out where to do our charity work at. My wife and I have determined that we can do a much better job giving of our resources and turning it over to some misguided charlatan in a pulpit that doesn't do anything to put back into the community. And so we find organizations that we know are doing good things with the money. And we find individuals and families that have needs, and we support them. I mean, it's a lot of people that are unemployed right now because of this COVID situation. And so you find out who has a true need, not those people who just trying to get over. And so we don't give to churches anymore. And let me tell you something else. I don't vote anymore. You know why I don't vote anymore? Because we keep getting piles of crap to choose from. And when you choose the options placed in front of you, you still end up with crap. What are you going to do to empower you and your family for the future? We have to be honest with ourselves. That old thinking does not work anymore. Let me say that another way. That old thinking has not produced viable results. Let me ask you a question. Can you leave a job you work at to your children or grandchildren? Would a job you work at continue to pay your children or grandchildren your yearly salary until their death? If the answer is no, you need to figure out how to leave them something economic that is within your control, and then you turn it over to them and it's in their control. The public school system has failed us. Our pastors have failed us. And our politicians have failed us. And let me ask another question. Did these entities actually fail us? Or was that the plan all along?